Denmark Vesey, born in 1767, probably in Saint Thomas, Danish West Indies, was a self-educated black man who planned the most extensive slave rebellion in U.S. history. In 1781, while still a boy, Denmark was sold to a Bermuda slave captain named Joseph Vesey and assumed the latter's surname. He accompanied the captain on numerous voyages, and in 1783, the two settled in Charleston, South Carolina. In 1800, Denmark was allowed to purchase his freedom with $600 he had won in a street lottery. He was already familiar with the Great Haitian Slave Revolt of the 1790s, and, while working as a carpenter, he read anti-slavery literature. In 1822, dissatisfied with his second-class status as a freedman and determined to help relieve the far more oppressed condition of bondsmen he knew, Vesey planned and organized an uprising of city and plantation blacks. The plan reportedly called for the rebels to attack guardhouses and arsenals, seize their arms, kill all whites, burn and destroy the city, and free the enslaved people. As many as 9,000 blacks may have been involved, though some scholars dispute this figure. Warned by a house servant, white authorities on the eve of the scheduled outbreak made massive military preparations, which forestalled the insurrection. During the ensuing 2 months, some 130 blacks were arrested. In the trials that followed, 67 were convicted of trying to raise an insurrection. Of these, 35, including Vesey, were hanged, and 32 were condemned to exile. In addition, 4 white men were fined and imprisoned for encouraging the plot. One of their pieces of evidence of the existence of the plot is a letter from a well-known abolitionist, Lydia Maria Child, to another well-known abolitionist, Thomas Wentworth Higginson, a Unitarian minister who supported John Brown's attack on Harper's Ferry and led a black regiment during the Civil War. Higgins asked Child for information of the history of slave rebellions for a series in the Atlantic, and she cited an interview with a free black man named Thomas Sullivan Brown, who was from Charleston and knew Vesey in both a personal and professional setting. Here is what Brown told her. He was a large, stout man. He was called the leader of the insurrection, and it was said arms were collected in his house. I was a carpenter and worked with Vesey, who was also a carpenter, and I knew of his plan. I knew that several persons were in the habit of meeting at his house, who were afterwards convicted and executed. I heard at the time of arms being buried in coffins at Sullivan's Island. In the time of the insurrection, the slaves were tried in a small room in the jail where they were confined. No colored person was allowed to go within 2 squares of the prison. Those 2 squares were filled with troops, 5,000 of all, who were on duty day and night. I was told, Vesey said to those that tried him, that the work of the insurrection would go on, but as none but white people were permitted to be present, I cannot tell whether he said it.